Hey guys, if you like landscape photos and you like learning Photoshop, then today's tutorial is going to be right down your street. I'm going to be showing you how to create stunning reflections in your landscape photos. Without further ado, let's jump into today's tutorial and get started. How many times have you took a photo and just felt like there's something missing? I've done it many times and I hope I'm not alone. It's a bit like having, say, your favourite meal and then it's just missing an ingredient, maybe salt or a spice. It tastes good, but it's just not quite delicious. In today's tutorial, I'm going to take you from start to finish in the process of creating a stunning reflection in a landscape photo. I'm also going to show you how to add atmosphere into the photo by creating fog and mist. It's going to be really awesome today, guys. So let's jump in and get started. So guys, this is the image that we're going to be working with today. It's a beautiful landscape photo, it really is. And what I like most about it is just how it's caught the end of the day. You know, the sun's just hitting the peak and just making it glow with that beautiful, sumptuous orange light. That being said, we can make this picture better, because even though our eye is drawn to the mountain and the sky, it just feels to me like there's something missing. So we're going to take care of that and we're going to create that reflection that I mentioned earlier. Now, before we really dive in and start with the process, I want to welcome everyone that's here for the first time and say, you know, a huge thank you to you guys for joining me for this tutorial. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow us here on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram if you're watching on IGTV. And you know, we have lots of brilliant content for you guys to enjoy. Lots of free tutorials about Photoshop and photography. So if that's your bag, jump in, subscribe or follow, and you can watch it when you're free, you've got a little bit of time, and you can just enjoy it at your own pace. Okay guys, without further ado, let's get started. So what are we going to do with this picture? Well, at the moment, we've got no room in it to actually add a reflection. You can see with the end of the image here. So where would we add a reflection? Well, it's really easy to do actually. All you need to do is add a reflection at the bottom, but we need to create the space to actually add it in. I'm going to press Ctrl J, and what this is going to do is it's going to create a duplicate layer. Now we're not working on our background layer, what I can do is I can grab my crop tool here and then just crop down here so that we've got more space to work with. I'm going to press the tick. Now we've created that extra room, we now have the space to create a reflection. So, next step for us is to create the actual reflection itself. I'm going to press Ctrl J again to duplicate the layer next time, and this is going to be a reflection layer. But if I just drag this layer down now that we've created, you can see that that's not going to work. And it's not going to work because it's the wrong way around. So let's just drag this back up here and let's show you how we're going to create the reflection. I'm going to right click, I'm going to press Ctrl T, which is the transform tool. I'm then going to right click and I'm going to press flip vertical, and watch what happens. This is going to flip our landscape picture vertically. Now if I drag this down, you can see, let's just get it in the right spot, that I've created a reflection. But we're nowhere near finished yet, because if I press the tick, it looks good, but it doesn't look great. And the reason it doesn't look great is because it's a little bit unnatural. Most reflections are not going to be that perfect. So we need to kind of add a few things in to make it look more like a reflection. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to filter and add a blur. The blur I'm going to use in particular is motion blur. So let's just come down here and select that. Now we've got our motion blur box open, you can see that already it's just added a bit of a blur in there. Now you want to make sure your angle's on 90 degrees. That's the best angle to choose. And then the distance is going to add the amount of blur. So let's just show you what I mean. If I bring this all the way up, you're going to have a crazy amount of blur in there. And then if I bring this down, it's going to add less of a blur to the image. So I think somewhere around about 15 or 16 is going to look pretty good. I'm happy with that right there. When you've got the blur how you want it, click OK. Now the next step in the process is to add another blur, but we're not going to use motion blur this time. This time we're going to go to filter, we're going to come down to blur, and we're going to choose Gaussian blur. Now we only want a small amount of Gaussian blur in this, we don't want it up high, and it's going to be the same process as with motion blur. With Gaussian blur you don't have an angle, it's just a blur which is added into the image, so it's just all about adding the strength of it. So I'm just going to drag this up a little bit, just have a look at how that looks. It's a bit too strong I think, we don't want to remove too much of the detail, so I bring it down to about 3. It's looking better, but it's still not quite right. So let's bring it down to about 2.7, and I like the way that looks. That looks great. So I'm going to hit OK. So that looks really great. Our reflection is really starting to take place. But the best thing we can do here to just add something different into it is to just change the amount of light in our reflection slightly. So I'm going to click on my levels adjustment here. And then all I'm going to do, let's do that again. I'm going to click on my levels adjustment and I'm just going to darken down the reflection a little bit. I'm just going to drag this down. And you can see it darkening down the reflection. The problem being is I've actually added this to the whole photo. Now all we need to do is just make sure that we clip this levels adjustment onto our reflection layer. That just means that it's only going to affect that one layer in particular. So to do that I'm going to drag this underneath and then simply I'm going to clip this to this layer by right clicking it and then pressing create clipping mask. And now this has made the reflection darker and it's kept the top bit here brighter. And it just separates the actual top of the image and the reflection just that little bit more. Okay, so it's really starting to take shape now and we're almost there. There's 2 more things I want to do though, just to make this image extra special. The first thing I'm going to do is come over to adjustments, click on vibrance and just push up that colour just a little bit more. Just going to drag that up there and just push in the colour. And that's just made the colours in the image pop a little bit more. And then finally, I'm going to add some atmosphere into this image. This is a really cool little thing that you can do, and you know, I actually do this with some of my images just to kind of increase the atmosphere, just so it draws in the viewer's eye that little bit more. So how are we going to do this? I'm going to start by creating a new layer, Control Shift N. You can also create a new layer by coming down here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my brush tool. I'm going to increase the size of the brush. And then we need to make sure that we've got a certain brush selected. Now great news, I'm going to include in this tutorial a fog brush. And this is something that you can use to get very realistic fog effects in your image. So you'll be able to download this in the YouTube description. If you're watching this on Facebook or Instagram, I will put it on the profile there so you can just download it. So don't worry guys, you're not going to miss out. So I'm going to choose this fog brush here, select it, and then I'm going to just make sure my brush is a little bit bigger. Now the next thing we need to do is choose the right colour, because if we just choose any old colour, it's going to look really unnatural. So I'm going to press I for my eyedropper, Alt for my eyedropper, and I'm going to select a whitish colour like this from the cloud. I'm now going to start painting this in just on this line here, and it's going to create this nice foggy misty effect. Here we go. The brush is a little bit too big there, so let's make it smaller. And then you can see I'm just tapping this here just to add in this beautiful misty effect. Now the trick is, with this technique, is not to add too much, because it's probably going to look unrealistic in certain places, but I'm going to show you a way to kind of add it in and then take it away, and this is going to just make it look even better. You can even just add in a few gaps like this, so it just separates more Just makes it look more realistic. Just going to drag this across the image here like this. And doing it on the horizon line, or sorry, doing it on this line here where the water is, it's also making it look like it's reflected on the water as well. So it just looks even more special. Now we're going to get it to a certain point here. I think that's looking quite nice now. Just maybe add a little bit more in. Like that. And then we've got this lovely misty foggy effect on the water. Like that. That's looking really good, guys. Now if you want to, you can actually take this a step further by just adding a mask to it on this layer. And then you can always paint away some of the effect if you think it's a bit too much. You just got to make sure you're on black on your mask, and then you can just paint this away with the same brush just to take away a little bit of the effect we've done here. I happen to quite like the way it is, so I think I'm going to leave this where it's at. Now if you feel like it's a bit too strong, you can also grab your opacity slider and just drag that down as well. I think I'm just going to drag it down to around about 80%, and that for me looks like it fits in the image really well. So that is how you create a beautiful reflection in your landscape photo. It's not that hard, is it? And remember, I've left that brush for you guys to download if you want, so you can add in that beautiful mist and fog effect. Now, if you haven't, then you should definitely check out more of my Photoshop tutorials. I can make it really easy for you. I'm going to stick a playlist here which I've created for you guys. You can watch tutorial after tutorial and just learn more about Photoshop. Whatever you do today, guys, have an amazing day, and I'll see you all again really soon.